Everybody always asks, how could the Jewish people, after being in Har Sinai, after hearing God's voice, how could they have sinned with the golden calf, with Chet HaEgel? What caused this? The Psukim themselves actually give us an answer. It says that they noticed that Moshe wasn't coming down to the Har, so they turned towards Aaron and they said, Moshe's not coming down, make us a god. That seems kind of weird. What does that one thing have to do with the other? Why Moshe not coming down causes them to start worshipping a golden calf? The Ramban and the Kuzari, Rav Yehuda Halevi in his Sefer, explain to us that this wasn't classic Avodah Zarah. This wasn't Avodah Zarah. It was people who felt that they couldn't reach up to God because they needed Moshe as the middleman. They needed Moshe to act in between them. And when you see that this problem doesn't just start at Chet HaEgel at the end of the Har Sinai experience, but rather right away after hearing the voice of God, they turned towards Moshe and they said, Moshe, we can't listen to God on our own. We need you to speak for him. Please ask Hashem to always go through you. The problem with the Jewish people in Ma'amad Har Sinai was they felt that they couldn't connect to Hashem on their own right. They needed somebody to act in between. Now, if you look at the reasons given for Avodah Zarah in general, idol worship, what causes a person to worship an idol? So the Gemara Masechet Ta'anit gives an interesting perception. And they say, if you look at all the different nations of the world that worship Avodah Zarah, you'll see that they always worship something that has to do with their personality, something that they connect to. People that are very fiery worship fire. People that are very fluid and more wavy, they'll worship the water. And every nation, based on their personality and their characteristics, that's what they worship. What we see is that idol worship comes from a place of, I can't connect to God because God is infinite, ultimate, omnipresent being. I can't connect to that. So therefore, instead of trying to create myself in God's image, I'm going to create a God in my image. I'm going to take God down to something that I can relate to more because I can never connect to something greater and beyond that. And we can see that, truthfully, this comes from a lack of humility. For somebody to say, there can't be anything beyond what I see and what I notice. There can't be a God that is infinite because I don't know what that means. Comes from a place of lack of humility and being able to look at the world as something that can exist beyond oneself. And if you really look deeply, this lack of humility is not just what causes Avodah Zarah. It's not just what causes people to worship things that they can touch and feel in the finite because they can't reach the infinite, but rather it's what causes people to not believe that they can strive for something greater. For them to see a world as what it is and be okay with it. And not say, I'm not going to look at what it is, but rather I'm going to try and envision what it could be. They look at themselves and they say, I can't connect to a God because I can't reach up that high. I cannot make the world into something that it isn't because it's not there yet. The Mishnah Masechet Avot has a beautiful phrase and says, in terms of Limud Torah, we shouldn't see it that we can finish the project, but rather we should see it as something that is never ending. But that doesn't mean that we should stop. A person that has the humility to realize that their point of view is not the end all is also the type of person that's able to strive for the greatness. Humility is not what lowers a person, but it's rather what makes somebody great. Bnei Yisrael, they couldn't believe in themselves enough to have the humility to say, I cannot reach Hashem right now, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop striving for it. And every individual that has the ability to look at the world and say, I can create something that's greater, I can create something that's more beyond what the world is, that is somebody that worships Hashem. That's somebody that worships the infinite. Not that looks at the world and says, this is what it is, and therefore I have to create God in the image that I see around me, but rather says, there's a God that's beyond me, there's a world that's beyond me, there's a self that's beyond me, and I'm always going to strive to reach that. Shabbat Shalom.